Football is a huge commitment on and off the field.
Playing basketball takes dedication and time.
Rugby is very taxing on your body, and when you come home, you usually don't want to do homework. What we want to know is, do all these sports affect your grades positively or negatively?
We interviewed some students at Olympia High School to see what they thought. Let's go see.
How does playing a sport affect your dedication to your schoolwork?
It affects me positively because I learned a lot of traits from sports like responsibility and perseverance. I never give up. I never give up on my homework.
How do you think being in a sport would affect your grades?
I think it helps students because it gives them that routine after the sport. So they just go in this routine, and then once they're in that routine, it just helps them more in school. So
how does playing a sport affect your dedication to your schoolwork?
It doesn't really. I usually find time to study and get together with friends and do my homework.
Do you notice a difference in your grades between in-season versus out-of-season? If so, why?
During the season, I do find a difference in my grades. I think that they plummet a little bit because I find myself focused more on the sport, I practice more, and then by the time I get home, I'm just ready to hit the showers and usually go to sleep.
We also wanted to hear the opinion of the staff at Olympia High School. In your experience, do you see a difference in the grades of the students that play sports and that don't play sports?
You know, in my 18 years, well, 20 years now of teaching, and here at Olympia High School in particular, I've actually seen, as a whole, people who play sports probably do a little bit better than the general population. Teaching a lot of AP classes, I don't see a difference between AP athletes and AP non-athletes. They're pretty much on par. But as a whole, I'd say that our athletes, whether they're motivated because they have to do well to keep playing sports, or they find a way to, they know they have to budget their time a little bit better because they have less time to study. Whatever the reason, I'd say as a whole our athletes do better.
What I would say is, instead of comparing non-athletes to athletes, I would compare my experience with kids that are in sports when they're not in sports. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So athletes I know that have played for us here at the high school in basketball, and when I used to coach at another school years ago, same thing. I would always know my student athletes and look at their grades and find out what kind of students they are and encourage them to do better in this and that, especially if they weren't going to be eligible for the season. And during the season, their grades are always better. So, does that make sense? So I would more compare, I don't have enough experience to compare all the non-athletes with the athletes, because those non-athletes might be in clubs and activities, and those clubs and activities, they might be motivating them to do better in school or whatever. But I would just say I could compare kids that when they're in sports to when they're not in sports. I think they tend to do better with their grades when they're in sports.
Question. I do think that there are a lot of students who are athletes who are motivated more during season so that they can make sure they remain eligible. So you have that factor that plays in for student athletes, that they want to make sure their grades stay up so that they can continue to play or to be eligible for the next season. So that is certainly an impact that I see with students who are athletes. And then you also have the impact of students who are trying to get into college so that they can keep playing their athletics. So students who are making choices about their classes in an effort to keep them eligible with the NC2A so that they can do their athletics when they get to college. And so there's lots of factors that play into that question. I think students learn a lot from their sports. They learn a lot about time management. They learn a lot about effort and motivation. And so you can also see just what they've learned from athletics playing out in their education, because athletes learn in their sport how to make sure that they are keeping their dedication and keeping their energy going so that they can have the best grades possible, keep all their options open as much as they can. But on the flip side of that, I've also seen athletics be their motivator when they are not as engaged in their education, but they want to keep playing their sport.
According to Yahoo Voices, a study at San Joaquin Delta College showed that kids who were either taking a PE class or in a sport had an average GPA of 2.54 to 2.61. Kids who weren't taking a PE class or weren't in a sport had an average GPA of 2.08 to 2.21.
According to the survey that we passed out to a few random classes at Olympia High School, students who played more sports throughout the year maintain a higher GPA. We passed out 100 surveys, and 41% of them played a school sport. Out of the 41, 73% had a GPA of 3.3 or above. Of the 59 non-athletes, 63% had a GPA of 3.3 or above.
According to U.S. News, high school students in Minnesota that do play sports have an average GPA of 2.84, while high school students that don't play sports have a GPA of 2.68.
After all of our studies, we determined that sports positively affect GPAs.